Great news for Democrats and the Biden administration. Bidenomics is officially endorsed by none other than multinational investment titan Morgan Stanley. Intrigued? Then click that like, subscribe, and the alert bell, and maybe check out my Patreon and enjoy the video. All right, folks, we have some great news for President Biden, the Democratic Party, and of course the country writ large, including in many cases red states and conservative constituents. This is good news for pretty much everybody, except if you are a Republican political operative or political surrogate. This is probably bad news for you because it's good news for everybody else. And as we know, the Republican Party's interests and objectives are in diametric opposition to not only those of Democrats and progressives and the marginalized communities of this country, but also the country as a whole. The good news is this. Morgan Stanley, the multinational investment firm, investment bank, they're a titan of industry, they have officially endorsed in their own way what we call Bidenomics. And what they're saying is President Biden's policies have led to an incredible GDP performance, which was much higher than what they initially expected for the first of the year. So we're going to discuss this article, and then I'm going to play a clip from a Biden surrogate, somebody, I think it's Jared Bernstein, who works for President Biden as part of his Economic Advisory Council, where he kind of breaks down, just again, a handy recap of all the great accomplishments under the Biden administration and Democrats, economically speaking. So CNBC has a good article. Morgan Stanley credits Bidenomics for much stronger than expected GDP growth. President Biden's economic policies drove an unexpected economic surge, which has forced Morgan Stanley to make a sizable upward revision in its GDP forecasts. Biden's 2021 infrastructure bill has created a boom in large-scale infrastructure, wrote Morgan Stanley analysts, while domestic business investment is rebounding, led by manufacturing. So, Biden's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is driving a boom in large-scale infrastructure, wrote Ellen Zentner, chief economist for Morgan Stanley, in a research note released Thursday. In addition to infrastructure, manufacturing construction has shown broad strength. As a result of these unexpected swells, Morgan Stanley now projects a 1.9 GDP growth for the first half of the year. That's nearly 4 times higher than the bank's previous forecast of 0.5%. The economy in the first half of the year is growing much stronger than we'd anticipated, putting a more comfortable cushion under our long-held soft landing view. Because GDP growth has been extremely high in the first 2 years of the Biden presidency, but it began to slow. But even this is considerable compared to what was initially forecast. This is good because, of course, if you're looking at financial forecasts and investment forecasts, Morgan Stanley, I mean, they're no joke. They're highly reputable, right? So the fact that they're endorsing, the president's economic policies, it's going to be hard for Republicans to assail that one. Now, I do want to also play again this clip from Jared Bernstein when he appeared on, it was a Fox News Sunday show. I think it was with Shannon Bream, who now hosts. And he basically, in a minute, he recaps the president's top line economic accomplishments. So I'll let him take it from here.
This president has kept his head down and tried to make sure that families and businesses got to the other side of those crises intact and in good economic health, and that's exactly what happened. We have an unemployment rate that's been below 4% for over a year and a half. That's a 50-year record. Over 13 million jobs since this president got here, 800,000 in manufacturing, and inflation now down 2/3 off of its peak. If you and I were talking a year ago, inflation would have been 2/3 higher than it is today. The gas price down $1.50. So look, it takes a while for these sentiments to reach folks, but now with Bidenomics in action and some of our investments playing out, 35,000 investments in 4,500 communities across this country, we are starting to see some results. So the Conference Board just posted its highest consumer confidence reading since January of 22. The University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index just posted its highest reading since September of 21. So more work to do there, but we think as these trends continue, these favorable trends continue, and as Bidenomics continues to take hold.
So listen, those top line notes from Jared Bernstein are not only accurate, but I love the sentiment that he throws behind it. It's not mission accomplished, right? It's not that there aren't legitimate economic anxieties and personal finance anxieties still experienced by numerous Americans. I mean, inflation is still real. It's considerably lower than it was, number one, and number two, it's considerably lower here in the United States than it is virtually everywhere else on Earth in terms of advanced economies like the G7. But it's perfectly fair for people to be still upset about inflation, to want to see more results, more progress, more quickly as well, right? They're perfectly legitimate economic anxieties, and to also expect the president and Democrats to continue to deliver. All of that's very much true. So while Democrats and the president should give themselves a pat on the back, they should also make it abundantly clear to voters, and honestly to people who are not voters, to conservative constituents who should vote for them but won't, to say, listen, we hear you. You do have economic anxieties. We are working to address those. But the fact of the matter is, as we've often discussed on this channel, Democrats don't do a great job, in my opinion, in the opinion of others, of touting their successes. Facts do not speak for themselves, period. It's for this reason that poll after poll after poll shows that to the vast majority of Americans, including many Democrats and many independents, there is still the belief that conservative fiscal policy is better than progressive fiscal policy, number one, and Republican fiscal policy writ large is better than Democrat fiscal policy writ large, when the evidence clearly shows the opposite. The Democratic Party has presided over stronger economies consistently for the past 40 to 60 years, depending on the metric, compared to Republicans. Simply a fact. GDP growth is much higher consistently under Democratic administrations. Job performance, we discuss this time and time again. Republican administrations pale in comparison to Democratic administrations with respect to jobs created. In every major metric, Democrats are better stewards of the economy than Republicans. That's just simply a fact. And if we want to change public sentiment on that, then you and I and everybody else have to remind everybody, using every possible combination of words, that these are the facts. The job is not yet done. And if they want their legitimate economic concerns to be addressed, they're better off voting Democrat.